what's going on everybody? Tyler aka Mafta back here with another Valorant video for you. Today I'm going to be going over the agent Sage, who I currently am maining in Valorant, right? It's closed beta FPS. In this video I will be going over all three maps and give you different tips and tricks to play Sage on, such as where to place walls that can help you gain shooting advantage for you and your team also, among some other tips. So that's it, let's get it started. Alright, so some of you may recognize this map from the weapons guide video. This is Bind. There's a lot of different angles that Sage can use her wall from here, which is really unique. This is a pretty even map, I would say. It really comes down to who has the better combination of teams. One thing you can do is start from heaven right here. You'll have an angle. This will be called showers right here, which is where they usually pour through if it's not from mid. So what you can do right here is get on top of these boxes at the start of the round. If you hear them in showers, you can just go ahead and throw your ice wall down right about here. And you can either sit on top of the ice wall, depending on what gun you have, and you can get this angle to see if they cross over right here. If not, you can also just play it really safe and just be on top of this box and wait for your wall to come down. It'll be up for about 45 seconds. If you don't have a team here, of course you can always just throw your little orb in there if you can get into that crevice and just have it iced off. Though it'll last for a while to let your team rotate and get situation for maybe a shower push. There's a teleporter behind showers that your team can technically push through, but we'll get into that in another strategy video. A lot of people don't expect anyone to be sitting up this high. They'll typically expect you maybe to be a little bit down here just because it's so close. Typically they don't expect anybody to be that high up. From a attacker's standpoint, if you're coming through showers, if at possible you can wall off heaven, but I don't really think it's too useful if you're not actually doing it from like actually up there when you can actually block off the doorway. If you do it here, it doesn't actually block off the entry of the door. So if someone is playing Jet on the other team, when you put that wall down, she can technically just jump over that wall. And I mean, if it's a good Jet, she's gonna get a couple kills and maybe mess up your whole team's setup there. You can have people boost right up here. You'll be able to get boosted. So you can throw your wall just like this and have your teammate standing on it. It'll block it off. You'll have a pretty good angle right here. You can just see the tops of their head right about here. If you're opping, you have to be careful because this box is penetrable. So if they do see the top of your head, maybe if they don't want to go for a headshot, they can just spray through that box right there and you're going to be eating a lot of damage. It is pretty safe if you step back just a little bit further. Fell off, but that's alright. If you step back just a little bit further, you won't get sprayed too much. You may not take enough damage, or maybe it will be beneficial for you to actually fall off. But that's about it for the majority of this site. You can pretty much just boost onto all of these different boxes, and as I said earlier, it'll usually throw them off just a little bit because they don't expect you to have that elevated height on them. The reason I don't really like these though are because they're so far in the open that you can just get hit from so many different angles. It's just not really useful. So mid is usually pretty easy to control, especially if you have sight. All you have to do is have a teammate up there at heaven for yourself, and if they call out that maybe they're getting flanked, that means they'd be going to heaven. You'll be able to look over to these two areas and you'll know where you're going. If not, they're going to be coming from showers or mid, and you can just play right about here, and you're in a pretty good spot that you can use your heal, whether your teammate is actually on site helping you defend, or if the teammate is in heaven, you'll be able to use that heal over there. So that's about it for A site. And there is one more spot. When you go through this teleporter, this will be B mid or B short to go straight into what we call hookah right here. One thing you can do on either side really is using your wall right here to block off that teleporter when they come through. So if you're pushing through, maybe the team called, hey, they're pushing B, all of a sudden A rushes out of A, they go through that teleporter that's over there, and now they're popping over here at your flank. You can just wall that off, give you more time. Typically you want to use this time to push onto site. If you're pushing through here, most people like to sit in this corner right here, so always remember that. People usually don't sit at this angle because it's too wide of a shot. It's really easy to just entry frag in that specific angle. Like you can see at the moment you pretty much get right here, you'll be able to see their gun. So it's pretty much who's going to get the first shot. Another spot they like to sit is right at the top of these boxes. You'll be able to see a little bit of their head. Pretty decent headshot, but they do have the angle to get that first entry frag on you if they're fast enough. But if you are on the defending side, you can kind of throw your wall out at a bit of an angle here. And this will give you a really nice high angle at B long, and it'll also give you an angle, depending on what gun, to hold hookah just a little bit. And like I said, you know, some people don't typically like having that awkward angle to have to shoot at, and especially if you're right here, you'll be able to move back. They're only going to be able to shoot at your legs pretty much, which isn't going to do a lot of damage, so you can just turn back. Or like I said, you can just sit here and watch it be long. Typically you only want to do this because the walls only last for 45 seconds if you know they're actually pushing up here. Most people, when they're coming from B long, they're looking at those corners over there, they're looking inside of here because they don't want to just get flipped on by a corner. So they're not going to be looking up here at like some super high angle. It's going to catch them off guard and you're going to be able to get that first shot. Same as the other side, you are able to just totally jump onto these little roofs right here for more awkward angles that they're probably just not expecting. This is typically good for like kind of right here if you can get the right angle to the corner. They're typically, when they're looking out of hookah, they're looking back towards the CT spawn side or maybe the back of sight behind this box right here. They're not going to be looking over on top of this box that you're at a weird elevated angle at. But I think the best part for this is definitely this angle, because like I said, it's another angle that you have to play on the B long spot. We have split. This will be the defending side. I will go into the details of the maps in a later video. Split is a very defender heavy map. It is all about the angles really, so I will show you a couple different spots that you can use on here to defend. First, depending on your playstyle, what you can do, I believe you spawn like roughly right around here in the closed. So when that timer goes, you can run up right here and you can wall off this entry, which is what a lot of people use to rush. You can kind of put it at an angle to make sure it gets closed off. However, if you also can stretch it out like this, but if you flick it just a little bit, you should be able to get just a little bit of a peek right here that no one can walk through. So if you are an aggressive style, you can just use this little cubby right here to peek. You can technically throw in a little bounce right there, and that'll get a lot of it. But most people actually play in that little cubby area back there that you can kind of see on that little crevice. You'll want to kind of launch throw those little orbs in there to get those into the back. So if you have any teams that are coming to flank, those walls usually hit like right around here. So if you have any teammates that are able to flank this way, depending on how far they are or if they're coming through sewer, if they're sitting back here, they should be slowed just enough to make that much of a difference. You can also do this another way, which is where if you're pushed up slow enough, as I've shown in a couple other videos, you can just put it on top of yourself, and this will give you the angle advantage from a higher point. Typically you do lose this trade. I guess it's really aim dependent more than anything, but sometimes if you can get the timing just right, they'll be right about down here, and a lot of people don't expect you to be on top of these walls. So what you can do is spawn this wall underneath yourself and just get your frags from this way. Sometimes the moment that does happen, they'll hide over in this cubby, which is, like I said, you don't have to peek it. You can just bounce your orb off of that to slow them over in that corner and give yourself the advantage on that one. While I'm over here, I can go over the defensive aspect of the wall from right here, which is where a lot of people play up here. So what you typically want to do, because the range on this is so short, you want to have somebody who can smoke that off, just so you don't have to worry about that angle right there. From there, you should be able to use another smoke on that side, so that way when your team comes through this angle, you don't have to worry about someone hitting you there, and if they do run through your smoke, you should have the man advantage, depending on how many people you put onto this site. And then if you come this way, again, you should have the man advantage. If there's somebody pushed up right about here, you should have the man advantage to win that trade also. Another neat trick you can do is if when you are attacking, you can throw your wall right up here on this little ramp, and it'll give you a bit of an advantage, pushing you up onto this wall. It'll also give your teammates just a little bit of wiggle room right here so they don't get hit. Usually you can angle this just a little bit differently, and so they won't get seen by Heaven, at least until they're down here. But what this is actually meant to do is when you're on top of this wall right there, people occasionally will sit over there into this corner, and they'll be aiming down here onto this ramp. They might be looking over here to try to get those headshots on your teammates. But if you're up there on top of the wall when you turn that corner, they usually won't be expecting you, so you might be able to get that frag entry right there on them, and that will let your team get Heaven control from that point. Another different aspect you can use the wall for right here is on the defending side. If you put your wall right here kind of at this little bit of an angle between the outlet and this little map station, whatever you want to call that, you can throw yourself up on it, and you'll have a really good angle right about here, and you can just pick them off. That way, if you don't want to play aggressive and put your wall right up there on the defending, just so you can give your teammate, it's really hit or miss on what you want to do for that one. Because, I mean, if you're standing right here, you'll hear the footsteps. You can make the call to say, hey, there's a couple people coming to the A-bomb site, whatnot. You can also make the play so you can grab the orb super early on, if you choose to do so. Playing back here does forfeit you getting that ult orb. I guess it comes down to preference and playstyle on how much you value grabbing the orbs. But that's a really nice wall angle. Split is a map that has elevator and sewers. Like the other map has a teleporter. Each map has some sort of a little gimmick into it. Elevators is part of this one. The other useful trick on here is the B-bomb site, which is where if you place your wall just a little bit of an angle over here, not too much though, and throw your wall up here, you will have a really good peak advantage. You can even throw it just a little bit over towards this way if the enemy tends to wall that off. But this is actually, it doesn't look like it is very high up in the air, but it really is a huge difference, and I'll tell you show you what it looks like when you come from the attacking perspective. But this gives you a really good angle because no one thinks to look up here. Other people will look up at Heaven, but it is such a different angle to look at. From looking up here to not even really paying attention to that very small pixel right there when you get advantage. When you are attacking, occasionally people will completely wall this off, and that will block Heaven view. I know it doesn't really look like it, but they cannot see your head right here from Heaven. So a lot of people will either play this angle over here, or will they sit in the back of the site, or they'll wait over here. So the best thing to do typically is to wall off Heaven right here. And then if you have someone with smoke, they can smoke this part off maybe. Maybe you're going to have 3 people that are rushing the site. And at that point, it comes down to just how good you are at aiming and who's going to win the actual trade battle. Of if you can kill the person who might be in the corner of Heaven, maybe the moment you walled that off, they say, all right, I'm not going to get a pick right there. I'm going to go over to this left side and catch them when they turn the corner. Or there might be someone that's over here waiting in this corner. However, if you do have this wall off right here, and you have another Sage that is playing Heaven, and you put that wall, as I said earlier, right about here, you're able to see over their wall, and you can have a really nice angle right here on the cliff of it. You will see just the tops of their head onto this map. It will give you the perfect angle that you'll be able to just get the headshots, which is really important in Valorant, as I've been over. And that is pretty much the most useful tips to use. Obviously, there's the occasional mid pushes where you can just completely wall off mid right about here. And assuming they're not playing Jet, they won't have a way to pick at you. On the opposite side, if you're coming from the attack and you think they might be Heaven, you can easily just wall off Heaven right there if you want to go for a mid push to get to their Heaven. From that perspective, you can do that also. It is doable. Or you can come across here. If you're trying to get to Heaven, it is okay. You can actually wall that part off if you want to be able to cross from long B to go over to sewers. And it'll also, again, guarantee you a free ult orb right here. So you can just fake them out by saying that they're mid and just take that, and you can have your team slow walk through sewers over here. And it'll take you straight to A main. And typically the best thing to do for that is to have anywhere between 3 to 4 people at B mid. And then just have one person over here to take count of how many people are defending A, how many utility they've been using, if they've blown everything. Because if they've blown everything, at that point you might as well have them wall off that area, grab that ult orb, come through sewer, and go to A. If your team has the most utility, they can just push through A and just smoke that off. Like I said earlier, smoke that off and you'll have a free push on the site. Another thing you can do, if you don't have Heaven control, you can technically just wall off Heaven. It's not a good wall, but you can push it further back if you're at the right angle, or if you're on top of Heaven up here, you can actually wall that off. Make sure I get it right. Yeah, if you're just up here, you can just straight wall it off. There won't be a way for like a Jet or somebody to zoom through it. It's just not possible. So those are the tips and tricks that you can use to advance your Sage gameplay here on Split. We're going to go on to the next. Alright, for our last map, we have my favorite map personally, which is Haven. I'm going to show you a couple different places. I believe this is the second best place for Sage to go when defending a map. I could spend a lot of time going over a bunch of the different angles that you can play here on this map that blocks things off, like jumping on top of all these boxes, blah blah blah. But a lot of these angles I don't think are actually good angles for Sage to play on, just because it's just not typically useful. Like they're too wide in the open, it doesn't work out. One of the better spots that you can also do, if you're over here from the attacking side, you can block off this wall right here to make it so they don't have a way to transfer from a flank behind you. Or if you're defending, my favorite position to do is right here in this corner up against the box. You can sit here and listen to the enemy footsteps coming, and the moment you hear him getting too close, you can just throw that wall up. It'll catch him by surprise. They're not going to know what to do. You can usually get a frag right here. Or if that wall is there and you throw that orb quick enough, that's a bunch of easy kills right there going your way. Next is just as we did for that wall, you can do to this one over here. Again, these wall scenarios are always good no matter if you're attacking or defending, because these are very important walls to block off. So if you just block those off, that sends a lot of time that they won't be able to flank you from behind, whether you go through double doors or if you go through mid, which is where we're going to be going next, which is going to be right back here to this soldier. If you get right on top of here and throw your wall up, a little jump, you will actually be able to shoot over into this wall. And you'll be able to see their heads just a little bit. You can even actually crouch peek it and you can still see their heads just right about here. I believe it goes to about neck level. But to them, you will look like just an absolute tiny speck. They're not going to be looking all the way back here. Typically, if they do look up here, people like to sit up here when they play Omen or Jet or Sage. They sit up at these weird box angles where your body is completely exposed. Even if you're at a weird angle like this is wall bangable, so they're going to be able to shoot you if they know you're on top of this box. You have to go all the way over here just to try to avoid angle. At that point, it's just not worth it. I could see being up here being worth it if someone is actually coming from mid push and you're not sniping from right there, having somebody up here. But at that point, you might as well have somebody that's playing Raze or Jet or Omen sit right there at that angle. Moving on over to A, I'll show a couple good spots here. As I said, I could spend forever spending times on the different angles of these boxes that you can have for like right here. Like you can push yourself up here, you can sit here and just watch a short from right up here when they push through. I mean, or you can literally just not even waste your time and you can just wall them off down there so they have nowhere to run. I mean, there's so many different angles you can actually do. But again, being up here, if they come from long, if your teammate loses the heaven match, or if you're playing a solo, if you're not even defending with another person, if they come from long and you're sitting right up here, now you have to jump down this way, then this screws you because you're stuck over there, you can't really come back here. It's just not worth it. Like, I believe it's better just to play really tough defense. If you're defending, again, you can just block off these entries right here. You're going to be forfeiting that orb over there, but you can slow them down. It'll just give your teammates a little bit more time to rotate over to help you out. It's also pretty easy to wall off heaven on this map when you're attacking. You can just wall that off. That's a very big spot to wall off because it lets short come through, it lets long come through super easily, and now all you have to worry about is really their spawn, which is another wall scenario you can do. If you don't want them to come this way, you can obviously wall that off. That's pretty good block also. The wall scenarios really come down to your team's communication, where they believe the enemy is, where they might be coming from. You don't want to, obviously you're not going to have all these walls in a game. They're all very situational on what to do. I wouldn't ever recommend, if you are attacking, blocking off short, if you're doing anything, I would always just wall off heaven or wall off their spawn. Their spawn is very arguable because the moment you have this site, you're retaking it, you have a really good angle right here to win that battle. So all you really have to worry about is heaven. So if anything, I would just worry about your flank or just heaven. Those are really the best two options you have. Important reminder that even though you are attacking, the moment you take a site and you plant the bomb, you are not attacking anymore, you are defending. You are defending the bomb site to make sure that they cannot retake the site and defuse it and get the win for themselves. So always keep that mentality that the moment you have a site won and you've taken it over, you want to play defense. Even if you're defending, you don't want to play too offensively. You don't want to go out here and chase these kills. I know it's just so tempting to do. You know, you want to peek these corners because you have a really good peek right here, or when they want to push, you can just sit right here, and the moment they come through that wall, you can just get the one taps. And it does work. Occasionally that will work. Maybe you'll lose a couple, maybe you'll win a couple, but it is so much easier if you really want to get the wins just to play safe, know what you're doing, let your team do its thing. And that's really what it comes down to. Is a very team-oriented game. There's also a lot of people that talk about bunny hopping on Sage's orbs, where you can just get through them quickly with about 3 to 2 steps depending on where you started off. I want to break that right now because I don't care what they say. No one is going to sit here and waste their time bunny hopping on all these different orbs that they're trying to get out of when you have teams playing so many different angles. The moment you hit those, or the moment that I personally even throw them down, is when I know for a fact you are there. We're not throwing these things prematurely and all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, they pushed that, all right, cool, I'll just bunny hop past it. Like, we don't just do that so you can just get past it. We do it because we know you're there. And the moment you're stuck on those, we're going to make the call that you're there. You're not bunny hopping. The moment you get hit with that, you're not bunny hopping out of it. The only way you can bunny hop is if you're walking into it and you use it to go onto a site. But the moment you get onto a site, people are going to be there waiting for you. They're going to hear you bunny hopping. It may be quiet, but they're going to hear you. And you have your knife out because you can't bunny hop with your gun. It doesn't work. It's the same as CSGO. So all the people that are trying to tell you to just bunny hop Sage's ice field, don't listen to them. They're crazy. It's not going to work. You're going to get shot from 3 different people while you have your knife out bunny hopping, and you're going to look stupid. Another tip, which is fairly obvious to people that already know Sage or the game, if your teammate dies from, like, let's say they die heaven from someone along, they didn't win that trade, you're able to just wall this off. If they're at a decent spot, when you press your 5 to use your ult, you can just res them. You want to make sure you can do that at a very safe spot. It takes about 2 seconds for the resurrection animation to finish for you. So it'll take 2 seconds for you to actually resurrect them, and then you pull your gun back out. It'll take another 2 seconds for your teammate to come off of the ground, resurrect, and pull their gun out also. So if you ever resurrect your teammate, you want to make sure that you have enough time to do that for both yourself and them. Otherwise, you're just wasting your ultimate. You may die, he may die, and it's just a really big ultimate to be wasting, because you can turn matches from a 1v1 to 1v2, a 1v2 to 1v3, which should be a pretty easy win. Maybe they died really early to a pick, and now you have your ult, and you can just remake that 4v5 back into a 5v5. There's so many different scenarios you can use that ult for. Another thing to keep in mind is the healing. If you left click, you can heal your teammates. If you right click, you can heal yourself. I think it's about a 20 or 25 second cooldown, but you can usually get 2 or 3 heals off in a game, and they're absolutely monstrous to have. You can take a teammate all the way back to 100 HP. So you can have 3 people that are all like half HP or something like that, and you just heal them. Maybe the other person's low, but that one person that you just healed might just clutch the game and give that big enough of an HP difference to win you that game. As for orbs, pretty average ability. It's definitely not as good as her ultimate. It's definitely not as good as her wall. It's not better than her actual healing ability, which can change so many things. It's not bad. I can't personally see a way to make it better. Like, I think it would be really broken if they made it so it does damage over time, like people's poisons or fires. It wouldn't make too much sense. I mean, it's pretty big enough as is that it practically already just stops you. It's definitely not something you want to prioritize when you're buying your abilities down here. You always want to make sure that you have a wall, and you might take 1 orb just for like when you're playing C, maybe. But if you're playing Sage and you're guarding B and you're just having the op and you're sitting back here at the back of the site, it's not exactly the best buy. I know it's only like 100, but it's not the best buy for early on in the game. Like, surely if you have enough econ and you can afford to buy it, obviously it's okay, because you just want to have all that you can at your disposal. But for the most part, you always want to make sure you have your walls. That's really what makes Sage the difference maker in games. Also, another note, if you hold the left click and just move or you hold the right click and move your mouse, you can rotate the angles instead of just pushing 3, which will always be at different like 90-degree angles to do. If you hold the right click and just rotate, you can choose which way you want to actually place that wall. It's really big. And even when you pull it back out here, say like I rotated this way, if I put it away and pull my gun back out, when I push 3, it'll save the last rotation that it was last on. So you can just rotate your walls if you know what site you're going to be holding down. That way you don't have to sit there and do it while you're waiting. You'll just have it ready to go. Pull your gun out so you don't lose something. And if someone's coming really quick, you can just tap that button, push it again, and it'll just go up. You don't have to sit there and panic rotate it or anything like that. It's very useful. But I believe that is it for my tips and tricks for Sage on Valorant. If you have any tips or tricks yourself, please leave them in the comments below. Share me some videos, let me see some. I'm always down to look at some Sage tech. And a reminder, sometimes supports can carry the game. I hope you guys have a good day, learned a lot today, and I'll see you next time.